The Tejas Mark1 was too small. The Rafale is too expensive. In this video, we analyze the Tejas Mk2, the only fighter jet that can actually save the Indian Air Force from a squadron shortage by 2030.
You know, in the world of military aviation, new fighter jets are usually announced with a ton of fanfare, right? Big reveals, bold declarations. But sometimes the biggest revolutions don't show up with a bang. Sometimes they're disguised, hidden right there in plain sight, just waiting for the world to catch on.
So what if a country could develop and launch a fundamentally new next-generation fighter jet, not by shouting it from the rooftops, but by calling it something else entirely? What if the real key to unlocking a nation's future air power was a deception so clever it's been happening right in front of our eyes this whole time?
Because this isn't just a story about a piece of hardware. Nope. It's a story of incredible strategy, of bureaucratic genius, and a plan to leapfrog an entire generation of technology. This is the real story of the HAL Tejas Mk2. Okay, so our story really kicks off with the name itself. A name that's both a nod to the past and honestly a brilliant piece of camouflage. To get what this revolution is all about, you first have to understand the deception. This quote right here, it just gets straight to the point. The name Mark II makes you think it's a simple evolution, right? A few tweaks here, a couple of improvements there. But the reality, well, it's something way, way more profound.
First things first, let's look at the official labels. The Tejas Mk1A is a light combat aircraft, an LCA, a nimble, point defense kind of fighter. But the Mark II? It's been completely reclassified as a medium-weight fighter, an MWF. Now, this isn't just wordplay. It's a declaration of a totally different mission, a whole new weight class, and a completely different level of capability. We're talking about a plane designed to replace giants like the Mirage 2000 and the Jaguar. And if you needed any more proof that this is basically a clean sheet redesign, here it is. According to a senior Indian Air Force official, the Mark II shares less than 20%, let me say that again, less than 20% commonality with the Mark 1A in its airframe and systems. Just let that sink in for a second. That means new tooling, new manufacturing processes, a whole new production line. By any engineering definition you can think of, this is a brand new aircraft. So why do it, right? Why call this absolute beast a Mark II? Well, the source calls it a genius plan, and it really works in three ways. First, you've got bureaucratic camouflage. Starting a new fighter program from scratch is a complete nightmare of red tape. By calling it an upgrade to the already successful Tejas program, it just sails through approvals and funding. Second, brand equity. Tejas is a powerful brand in India, a real symbol of self-reliance. This name just piggybacks on all that success. And third, and this is the clever part, strategic ambiguity. By downplaying the true scale of what they're doing, it avoids kicking off an immediate arms race and causes potential adversaries to totally underestimate the massive leap in capability that's happening. All right, now that we've peeled back the layers on the naming strategy, let's get into the hard evidence. We're going to break down the physical transformation of this aircraft piece by piece, just to show you how radically different the Mark II really is. Let's start with just the raw size. The maximum takeoff weight has shot up by nearly 30%, jumping from 13.5 tons on the Mark 1A all the way to a hefty 17.5 tons on the Mark II. This isn't some minor tweak. It's a fundamental change to the aircraft's entire foundation. And what does all that extra weight let you do? Well, this. An almost 85% increase in how much it can carry. It jumps from carrying about 3.5 tons of weapons and fuel to a massive 6.5 tons. That transforms the fighter from a light interceptor into a heavy-hitting, multi-role powerhouse that can carry a serious arsenal into any fight. And the engine behind all this change is the new powerhouse. The Mark II is getting the General Electric F414, which pushes out 98 kilonewtons of pure thrust. This is the engine that makes the bigger size and heavier payload possible, giving the jet the muscle it needs to perform like a true medium-weight fighter. And this table here just lays it all out, showing the complete transformation. The aircraft is longer, the wingspan is wider, it carries 1,000 more kilograms of fuel internally, and maybe most critically, its combat radius has basically doubled. Every single key metric is telling the exact same story. This is not an upgrade.
But maybe the most obvious giveaway, the one you can see with your own eyes, is this, the canards.
These little forewings are a huge deal in aerodynamics. You don't just bolt these on. They require a complete overhaul of the flight control systems to manage the new, larger airframe, boosting both stability and maneuverability. This also pushes its G-load limits. That's the incredible force a pilot can withstand in tight turns, from 8 Gs to 9 Gs. It's the final visual proof that the Tejas Mk2 is a whole different animal.
So the physical evidence is pretty undeniable, right? We've covered a lot of key numbers and specs that prove this aircraft's massive transformation. And hey, if you're the type of person who loves to master these details, maybe for competitive exams or even just to test your own knowledge, we've got something just for you. Are you preparing for competitive exams? Here's your chance to test your knowledge. Take part in our quiz on this topic and see where you stand. It's a great way to revise, practice, and boost your confidence. The quiz link is available in the comment section as well as in the description below. Don't miss it. Give it a try now. Okay, so if the new airframe is the brawn, then what we're about to talk about is the brain. And this is where the Tejas Mk2 story goes from being about a new fighter to being about a whole new generation of warfare. This is where the real revolution is happening.
Now, before we dive in, let's do a quick definition. A true fifth-generation fighter, like an F-22 or F-35, is defined by a few key things. The big one everyone talks about is all-aspect stealth and carrying weapons internally. But it's also about supercruise, flying supersonic without dumping fuel in an afterburner, and, just as important, something called sensor fusion. That's the jet's brain automatically taking data from all its sensors and creating one simple, clear picture for the pilot. Remember that term? Sensor fusion. It's crucial.
This quote from an Indian Air Force official might just be the single most important way to describe the Tejas Mk2. Now, AMCA is India's true fifth-generation stealth fighter program. So what on earth does AMCA minus stealth mean? It means you're getting the brain of a fifth-gen fighter, but without the fifth-gen body. The 5- idea is just brilliant in how simple it is. Inside the jet, that's the 5, you have the brain. The Mk2's avionics and software are being developed right alongside the 5th-gen AMCA program, built specifically for that advanced sensor fusion we just talked about. The minus is what you're not getting, a super expensive stealth body and internal weapon space. So you have the mind of a 5th-gen fighter in a more conventional, let's call it a 4.5-gen body.
And look, this isn't a failure to build a stealth jet. It's an incredibly smart, pragmatic choice. It lets India's engineers perfect the hardest part of any 5th-gen fighter, that complex software and sensor fusion, on a less risky and much more affordable platform. You get arguably 80% of the capability, that superior situational awareness, for a fraction of the cost and the development headache. It's just smart.
So we've got a new airframe and a 5th-generation brain. But how does this 5- fighter actually stack up in the real world? To find out, we've got to put it in the ring against a true heavyweight, a world-class, combat-proven benchmark. And that benchmark is the Dassault Rafale, an aircraft the Indian Air Force already flies and respects deeply. Now, as you can see, they're in different weight classes. The twin-engine Rafale is bigger, it carries more. But just look at that estimated unit cost. That's a huge difference, and believe me, it's just the start of the story. See, in modern air combat, a fight is often won before the pilots even lay eyes on each other. It's a duel fought with radar beams, with invisible waves slicing through the sky. The winner is the one who gets the first look, first shot. And this is where the Tejas Mk2 might just have a game-changing edge. This whole duel comes down to the core technology inside their radars. The Rafale uses a fantastic AESA radar. That's like having hundreds of tiny radars all tracking multiple targets at once. It's based on proven gallium arsenide or gas technology. But the Tejas Mk2's homegrown UTM radar uses the next generation, gallium nitride or GaN. Simply put, GaN is more powerful, more efficient, and way more resistant to jamming. It is a full generation ahead. The implication of this is just staggering. This one component gives a Tejas Mk2 a potential 7-year technological advantage over the current Rafale in the single most critical sensor on the entire aircraft. Dassault doesn't even plan to integrate a GaN radar until its future F5 variant in the 2030s. The Mk2 is slated to have it from day one.
And that brings us right back to the ultimate strategic question, cost. This chart says it all. You get a fighter with a potentially superior next-generation radar for roughly half the price. Think about it. For the cost of one Rafale, the Indian Air Force could field 2 Tejas Mk2s. This isn't just a tactical advantage anymore. It's a strategic one that could let India solve its squadron shortage much more quickly and affordably. So we've seen the Mark II is a new fighter with a new brain that can go toe-to-toe with the very best. But its most important role might not be what it does today, but what it makes possible for tomorrow. It is the absolutely essential bridge to India's ultimate aviation ambition. At the end of the day, the Tejas Mk2 becomes the foundational key to making the fifth-generation AMCA program a success. First, it de-risks the technology by testing AMCA's complex brain in a real flying aircraft. Second, the huge production run will build the entire industrial ecosystem needed to even attempt a stealth fighter. And third, it lets pilots develop the tactics to fight with fifth-generation sensor fusion, so when the AMCA finally arrives, they already know exactly how to use it. The Mark II makes the AMCA possible. And that really leaves us with one final thought. The Tejas Mark II is a fascinating aircraft, no doubt, a story of clever strategy and advanced tech. But when you look at its real role as a technological bridge, an industrial catalyst, and a trainer for a new way of war, you have to ask, is the true measure of a weapon's power what it can do on the battlefield today? Or is it the future it unlocks for an entire nation?